What is up, Sneeples? We have the generic and the expansion slot cards left for this heavy hitter set, going over what cards can be seen and constructed, what cards you should be drafting, what cards you should be avoiding, and even what cards you can be playing in UPF. So without further ado, let's get into it. If you want to see the Warriors, the Brutes, and the Guardians, be sure to check out those other videos. But this is the expansion starters. That's where we're going to start off with. We're going to start off with Graven Call. Graven Call being the assassin dagger. At first I was really into this dagger, but the more I looked at it, the more I really, observed that it just falls pretty short. The fact that it doesn't have an on hit to deter blocks, I think is actually pretty huge. And the only way that you're going to get really great value with this card is to consistently flick knives. Consistently have a way to be able to break this dagger in order to just consistently bring it back, which also means that you're going to need to consistently make silver. And despite me saying consistently a lot here, this card just isn't consistent. So I don't think this card is up to par with any of the other weapons out there. I suppose if Arachne ever gets banned or hits LL, then take their weapons with them. So Graven Call then might be an option. Anyways, we're gonna move on. Coercive tendency. This is the Arachne specialization, giving Arachne some love so that Arachne can be competitive. And I think this card is huge. I think this is an automatic 3-of in Arachne decks. Just being able to have a way to get go again by just having to complete a contract. So if you can be able to hit, your attacks have go again. Very, very huge. This is an attack reaction on top of it all. So you don't even necessarily need to hit, you just need to make sure the contract is fulfilled, and this allows you to fulfill a contract by looking at the top 3 cards here. So I think this card is very, very good. Oftentimes with Arachne, you can easily just go 0 for 4, 0 for 4 and feel great about it. So having go again, I think is actually very big. So love this card. If you're playing Arachne, this is an automatic 3-of, and will this put Arachne on the map? Well, we've started to see some Arachne have success in the late meta after Lexi and Iyslander were gone. We're introducing new heroes to this meta that isn't really aggro per se, except for maybe KO. So there is a very good chance that Arachne could be able to deal with these type heroes and make a splash. I don't know if this doesn't make Arachne S tier. I don't even think it makes him A tier. Maybe Arachne is B tier, and that might be pushing it, but I'm hopeful. I like playing Arachne. Next up is Ancestral Harmony, the ninja action. It does what we want. It is a blue pitch. It does cost 0. It blocks for 3. This is great. This is exactly what we want to see when we are looking at ninja cards. But attacks with combo gain +1. I think it's just okay, to be honest with you, because most of the time we were already playing combo cards that were breakpoints. So making a 4 a 5 doesn't really change too much. It just means now you can't block with two blocks, I guess, that part's kind of whatever. However, banishing top card of your deck, if it has combo, you may play it this turn. That part's a little iffy too. I think this card can be used and can be used very well, and this card even might help a different combo chains, be more viable. But the way I see it now, it's just a little lackluster, and I don't know. It seems to be improving on something that was already very good. But maybe that's what Ninja needs. I just don't see it personally right now. Obviously, this is a Katsu card more than it is a Phi card. Or Benji card. So keep that in mind. This is really just Katsu. Katsu's already doing good, by the way. So Katsu, does this put Katsu in A rank? No, but he's probably B plus tier. Evo Magneto. Evo Magneto being an Evo equipment. Seems that this is just a sideboard type card to go against Dash or Dash IO decks. Any decks that have a lot of items, being able to control the item. That is pretty cool. I think that allows for Teklo-Vossen to have a matchup into Pistol Dash, which, hey, okay, he'll take those. Does that help Teklovasin, have a matchup into like Kano, into other decks? So I don't think this is going to be enough to push Teklovasin to becoming viable, but this is a start. This is a start. All right, next up, Judge, Jury, Executioner. Yeah, this is an automatic include. I wish this wasn't a legendary. I wish you can run 3 of, but of course it is because it's such a good card. You have to have an aim counter on it, so make sure that if you're gonna play the, Judge, Jury, Executioner, you probably want to try to play Memorial Grounds because that will put the card on top so that you can use Crow's Nest. Otherwise, if you're using like Sandsky or Great Bow, you're gonna have a aim counter with it regardless, so that's a little easier to make work. But this card is just way too good to not include, especially if it's only a 1-0 slot. That's real easy to figure out. So Azalea is already, I would say, like maybe A- tier. I don't think, because this is just one card, I don't think it bumps her any. I just think it keeps her solid in the A tier. All right, reel in. Looking at the top X cards +1 for traps here, that just tells you right then and there, even though it doesn't say it, it's a Riptide card. It doesn't have to say Riptide Specialist for us to recognize this is a Riptide card. Has the reload on top of it all and is an instant, so you can do it on your opponent's turn to try to find those traps to keep you alive. And maybe even to kill them if you're dealing some Riptide damage. This is cool. This is really cool. I really like the play style that this can encourage. A Riptide playstyle. We're getting more of the Pirates themes. That's always pretty cool. Yeah, I like reeling quite a bit. Glad to see it around. Does this put Riptide in any sort of, better range? He was actually not doing bad in Blitz. I could see this actually making him slightly better in Blitz. And I have a buddy who plays Riptide, and he's loving this card, and he's going to be playing this in CC. So, I think Riptide as a whole maybe be able to be a solid B tier with this. And if the format really is starting to slow down, that Riptide deck's pretty value heavy, so this might even push it to B+. So keep that in mind. But yeah, really like this card, really cool. Sonata Galaxia. This one being another Sonata card that gets a little cheaper for each rune chant you control. So now we're kind of talking about Living Legend format, because if we're looking at like Bloodchief Skeleton, I mean, this is kind of what, it's the same deal, right? You get to search for a Runeblade Aura that costs X or less and put on battlefield if X2 more. This gets go again. The first one that I think of is Lumen Doom. Just being able to bring that out to convert all your rune chants into 2 damage counters, basically. That's how I see it. There is a few other cards out there. There's like Runeblade Barrier, and that's just making more rune chants. Right now, Viserai is not very viable. I don't think this is anywhere making him viable. However, in Living Legend, I have him in the S tier. And will this be played? I don't know. I think he has already a really good amount of cards. I think they're getting a little tight as far as the deck list goes. So I don't know if there's actually room for this card. So this card might just be just there. Next up, Aether Arc. Aether Arc is just our wizard card that it's just a better blue 0/1 damage. You create a ponder for each hero that dealt damage or that you dealt damage to. So, a way to create a ponder consistently works very well as a UPF card. You don't necessarily need a ton of ponders. You can only put 1 card in Arsenal, but you can then start choosing what card you want in Arsenal. And if you draw that Aether Wildfire, that's a good one to put in the Arsenal. So Aether Arc is very cool in that sense. I mean, it's just kind of an easy auto include. You can play it over blue Aether Dart or even blue Sap. I mean, there's so many things you can play this over, so it just fits in very, very easy. And it's just, is it a major upgrade for Wizard? No, but it is a very slight one. Dissolve Reality. This one's pretty huge. This one came out pretty early on, having each hero put all cards in their arsenal on the bottom. So that is including if you are running against a New Horizon opponent and they have 2 cards in arsenal. Both those cards are going on the bottom, and then each player creating a ponder token. So regardless if you put a card from your arsenal on the bottom or not, you will still create a ponder token. Really good. The fact that, especially if you don't have an arsenal and your opponent does, and you play this card, then that is a net gain for you, and because you are replacing this card with a ponder token, and you just took away their arsenal. Yes, they get a ponder token, but you know, I'm pretty sure they put something in the arsenal for a reason, right? So you're taking that away, and that's very good. And then this has Go Again on top of it all, and it's yellow, and it blocks 3. I mean, it's so good for Prism. It works very well for there. But you could even consider running in Dromai. It's not a red pitch, but you know, you can consider it. Luminaris, Angel's Glow. Oh, I should say, Kano is like a solid B plus tier, maybe A- tier right now. I don't think this gives him any sort of bump. I think it's like Azalea, just gonna stay where they're at. Dissolve Reality. Okay, a little bit of a bump to Prism, but not a lot, right? Luminaris, big bump to Prism. Big bump to Prism. Allows Prism to be playable, basically. You know, the second Luminaris just wasn't hitting it. The third Luminaris is hitting it. Being able to have the Heralds have Go Again without having to pay for it, huge. Angel attacks having Go Again without having to pay to give them Go Again, huge. Especially because it costs 2 to attack those Angels and those Heralds most of the time. So very, very big. No, this isn't the first Luminaris that gives all your auras Go Again, all your illusionist attacks Go Again. No. So you would still have to probably have some sort of aura sideboard for like the go tall decks. But when you're talking about going against like, you know, go wide decks, giving these Angels and Heralds Go Again, pretty damn good when you are trying to race other decks. So keep in mind the Prism. I think we are going to see Prism in a very big way. You know, she has some good matchups that are coming up in this set. Warrior and Guardian are great matchups typically if you can get the aura package working for the Guardian. Warrior, she can just do her thing. Brutes can cause problems for sure, as they usually do for illusionists, but you know, 2 or 3 is not so bad. And I think she's gonna be something that we will see. I don't know exactly where to place her, but you know what? This leads me to my segue. Me and Easton Douglas will be doing a tier video of this new meta coming up. It'll be way too early as we have not seen any sort of decks, but we are still going to do a tier list video, and you'll have to check it out to see where we put Luminaris, or where we put Luminaris Prism in this new tier list. Okay, those are the expansion slots. Let's get into the generic. We're going to start with the Fable that was actually given to us today. Cost 0. That's good. I can see the cost now. I know this is how you have to like crack your head, or maybe your editor Gabe will help us out here. But basically, this is a UPF card, and only a UPF card. There's no way you'd want to play this if you're not playing UPF. And that's just all there is to it. It's really cool. Why not play it if you're playing UPF? I think it's really fun. It might just even be something you just want to just start out with. I think that'd be cool too. So, you know, it's very fitting as far as a landmark for the Fable. I thought it was going to be a brute gem, but they can't all be gems. Okay, let's get into the generics, the other generics now. There's quite a few, and there's a lot that we've seen, and there's some that are new. One that is new is Balance of Justice. You know, I don't think this beats the Crown, but I will be honest and say that when Crown of Providence came out, I thought Arcanine Skullcap was better because it just had more block. It did not take me long to realize how good Crown was once playing with it. That might be the same case of Balance of Justice. However, I really think that having the sync ability of Crown is very huge, and I don't see Balance of Justice being the card to play over it. The only time I see Balance Justice coming in is if you plan to play against opponents that are going to draw cards like crazy, which there will be some, I'm sure. So I think Balance Justice is more of a sideboard card than a main board card. Next up is, we'll see it in Constructed. We definitely will. Glory Seeker, we won't see in Constructed, but we could see in Draft. Just an instant speed destroyers to draw a card. Basically, can turn your blue into a red, turn your blue into a yellow, or just a better blue. That's kind of what you're hoping at the very least. This card does not block, so this isn't a card that I'm trying to draft immediately. This is a card that I'll let come to me in the late draft. But overall, not a bad card. Just allows for a bit of a hand filter, so not bad at all. Yeah. Sheltered Cove, being able to pay 3 to destroy it to prevent 2 damage. You know, not too bad. This really only applies to attack reactions that you didn't see coming. Being able to stop an on-hit effect from an attack reaction or just lethal, that can be pretty huge. It doesn't block, so but again, I'm not drafting this very high. I'm gonna let this kind of come to me, and I do not see us seeing this in Constructed. All right, next up, Face Adversity. Being able to defend for 2 only if the attacker has drawn a card this turn. I don't know. I don't know how I feel about this card, because there's quite a bit of gold out there. There's quite a bit of card draw, but is there enough to make me feel comfortable having this card as my block? Because otherwise, I don't have that piece of equipment. If my opponent doesn't draw a card, I don't have a headpiece for Face Adversity. So I will probably avoid this card and go for other. I'd almost just rather go for Glory Seeker over Face Adversity. Yeah, it's tough. It's tough for me to feel confident drafting this card. So I don't think I'm going to be drafting it early at all. And if it comes to me late round and I don't have a headpiece, okay, we'll go ahead and pick it up. In Constructed play, I don't think we're seeing this. Unless there's going to be a hero that just draws card instantly turn 0 or turn 1, maybe you could play this in like a wizard type build, but for Blitz, but that would be it. Of course, you have Confront Adversity, Embrace Adversity, and Overcome Adversity. Okay, so next up, Headliner Helm. Block is equal to number of opposing heroes with greater life than you, so that means this could just be a 1v1. This could be blocking for 1. That I'm fine with. I understand they have to be more life than me, but I'm fine with that. I'm okay with that being a block. I could draft this. It wouldn't be the first pieces of equipment that I would look for, but I would take this over some of the equipments that we've already seen in drafts. So I'm actually quite fine with this. Even if this just blocks 1, I'm okay. Now, obviously, in UPF, this is where this card shines. This could block for 3, which is pretty gnarly. So I do like this piece of equipment for that. There is going to be UPF drafting. If you are playing UPF drafting and you see this card needs to be kind of a pick, like your top 5 picks, because it really is that good. Same with the Stadium Centerpiece, Ticket Puncher, and Grandstand Leg Plates. And really, guys, what it comes down to is anytime you can get a free block 2 or even up to a free block 3, that's just way too good to ignore, especially the fact that it's generic. Okay. Oh, and then Bloodied Oval as well. Also, really like this. This is a generic shield. This is our only generic shield. We get a Guardian shield, but we don't get a generic shield, which means that in draft, this is what you can use as a warrior. You don't have to dual wield. You can go sword shield. Rhinar, you can even go sword, or you can go claw shield or meat axe shield, whatever. So I really actually like the shield, and I would actually draft it pretty high. Even if I'm playing Guardian, just to have a free extra block. I think that's very, very valuable. So very much like the Bloodied Oval, and then obviously in UPF, I really like it. And then none of these we're going to see in Constructed. All right, now onto the cards. Nasty Surprise, being the one that if it gets discarded or put into the graveyard from the top of the deck, you know, you get some extra tokens. Very cool, very situational, very niche. So in that way, I think this card is just okay, but a little too niche for me, a little too niche for Constructed, I believe. It's something like Poison the Well, where it's like it targets one type of, or one thing that could happen. And because it targets one thing that can happen, you know, maybe you can play it in, you know, Kodachis. It does have the Kodachi numbers and Kodachi pitch. could be good there. That's the only place I really see it where it's like you could play it just because it's like okay there. Yeah, but probably not, especially with the new Ninja card. That probably just takes up that spot. Okay, Pay Up. I like this card. This is a 3 for 6 that blocks for 3, but could have overpower and could steal gold or could deal an additional damage. So this could even be a 3 for 7. It's just very good value. The fact that it blocks for 3 as well. There's a lot of gold that goes around. There's a good chance this could have overpower. Overpower is a way to finish games. I draft this very high. In Constructed, this isn't the case so much. There is Royal Drum Eyes out there, but they don't need the gold, and sometimes they just pop it turn 1 to just get the Ash. So I don't think this is going to be very good in Constructed, but in Limited, this is a very good card. I would draft this really high. Okay, Ripple Away. So thought this was a Ninja card the first time I saw it. Was like fooled. But anyways, at instant speed you can discard the card, and then you can prevent some tokens from being made. This can be used for like the Might, Vigor, and Agility tokens that we've seen. That's okay. You can just discard this to prevent them from having Agility. I think that's the only one I would want to discard this card for. As far as like in draft, where I would draft this, it is just a solid blue pitch that blocks 3 and that could attack for 4. And then those numbers, that's just super solid. I think I'll just take it for those numbers alone. And it has the extra ability that I could use if I really wanted to. So I think I'm drafting this pretty high because of it. It's just generic. I could put it literally in every deck. So I like it because of that. In Constructed, I don't think there's enough tokens out there that this needs to be done. Being able to just take away 1 token is kind of useless for just 1 card. If Dromai makes some Aether Hash Wings instead of 3, she makes 2. So I don't think it's a constructed card. I don't think there's enough good tokens out there for it to be worth often enough, at least in gameplay. But in Limited, just from the stat lines, I'm okay with it. Okay, Standing Order. I think this card is one of the best cards of the set. The fact that it's generic is amazing. It is a 0 for 4 that blocks for 3 at its absolute worst. That's just Wounding Blow, and that's okay. That's okay to play. That's okay to draft early. That's just okay. And then it has it when it attacks or defends, you can sync your arsenal to give it additional attack or additional block. There's been a ton of times in Limited especially where you're left with 1 card, and it's not necessarily a great card, but it's just 1 card that you just arsenal so that you can draw a full 4, and I guess you're going to be playing a blue out of your arsenal later on. Now this kind of solves that problem. This says, hey, well, let's turn this okay arsenal into like +2 attack or defense. I think that's huge. I mean, blocking for 5 on 1 card is pretty damn good. Unmovable blue, you have to pay 3 to do this. This one you don't. Pretty sweet. Even just as an attack, 0 for 6, that could be really cool too. I think the deck that stands out the most that would use this card the most effective is Emperor, to me, just because I play Emperor. But I think this generic card could go in quite a bit of decks, quite a bit of value decks. I think if Briar could play this and feel fine with this as far as Blitz goes. But we might even see this deck or this card in like stuff like Uzuri, Redline Uzuri, or just some value town decks, because this truly is a value card. Very, very cool card. Draft this very high. All right, Tenacity. Tenacity is a very interesting card for sure. The fact that it gets more powerful number of times that cards are blocked on Combat Chain. I don't see the Combat Chain ever going above 3 in Limited, really. I guess maybe it could with like double swords and 2 attacks, maybe go up to 4, but it seems like it's very hardly ever going to really go above 2. So if that's really the case, I think this card is a 0 for 3. That's a yellow pitch that blocks 3, and that's really whatever. Now, obviously the one that is looked at as far as when constructed is Mask of Pouncing Lynx. This is a target that mask can grab. And instead of Salt the Wound, where it's like number of attacks that hit, this one could be number of attacks that block. So if your opponent went heavy on the blocks, you can still pop the mask if you got one hit in, and then go and grab Tenacity and maybe come in with a 0 for 5, a 0 for 6, one of those things. It's probably not going to be something that's worth it. It's kind of like just not enough in my eyes. But it does have Kodachi values. It pitches for 2. It costs 0. So it could very well still be played in Fi. I think only Fi would really play this card. And I think it's going to be pretty French. I think it will eventually dissolve and we won't see this card anymore. In Limited, this card just doesn't meet the quota. This card is very low on my Limited draft ranking. So do Secrets. Generic Instant here. This is a card that only really gets true value coming from the arsenal just because it can replace itself. I do think it is very valuable knowledge to look at your opponent's hand and the top card of the deck, especially with all the clashes going on. I think that's really cool. But looking at your opponent's hand, I think does have some really good value to it, because it is one of those things where you can play on your turn to see how they would block, or you can play it on their turn to see what's coming. I just think that there is some value to that might get overlooked. That being said, I don't know what deck would play this. I really don't. It's kind of hard to imagine. It being an instant, it's hard to, it wouldn't be like a Kano card because it needs to be a non-attack action. And there's not a lot of heroes out there that just kind of bullshits around. And this kind of was like just a card that you just kind of mess around with. Therefore, it's really great for UPF. This card is really cool for UPF. UPF can give you a little bit of time to play cards like this, or at the very least, an arsenal card like this. So I like it for that. In draft, this card is just kind of more of a fun card. There's a lot of cards I'm going to take over this card, just because I would rather be more proactive with damage and on hits and just stuff like that. Okay, down but not out. Okay, I'm so happy that the frequently asked questions came out for this card, because at first I thought this could be a very easy 3 for 8 overpower that on hit get all the tokens. And then it was pointed out that that might not be the case. And then on the frequently asked questions, it was proven that that is not the case. Instead, I thought originally you only had to have less life and less equipment plus tokens. But instead, it's you have to have less life, less equipment, and less tokens. So in Classic Constructed, I don't think this is a card that is going to be played or should be played. Maybe against Dromai, but even then, I'm really not feeling it. Now, in Limited, I think this card is still pretty good. I think having less life is not hard to have happen to you. Having less equipment is not hard to have happen to you. And having less tokens, it's just a matter of if your opponent is creating tokens or not. So down but not out, I think can still be good. I think it would be a great card to just kind of put in your arsenal and kind of wait for that time. Again, 3 for 8 with overpower with this on hit is pretty gnarly. So maybe it doesn't always hit, but when it does hit, it's kind of tempo swings. So I do like down but not out, and I would draft that pretty high. Wage Gold being a 3 for 7 universal, which is just generic in the sense of heavy hitters and limited, but universal really means that it can be played in any deck, and sometimes it can be effective. I mean, it can be boosted away in dash, and you would still retain your action point because this would be a mech card. It's really cool in that sense. There's some things that really help with that, make it work, and it just allows you to, if you're building some sort of very class specific type deck, to have 3 more cards, in at least if we're in red, that can just go right on in. But yeah, Wage Gold, being able to wager to get a gold token, it's a 3 for 7. It meets the triple block. It's a breakpoint attack. So I like this card a lot. I would draft this very, very, very high, especially because it's generic and I can put it in all 6 hero decks. Next up is reinforce the line. Oh, as far as like weight it's like seeing any sort of constructed play. I think I'll just kind of wait and see. Nothing like stands out for me to think, oh yeah, that would actually be really cool there. So nothing's standing out as of now for that. All right, reinforce the line. Reinforce the line. We've seen this card before. This was back in Crucible, just a way that you can defend but without playing or without officially playing a defense reaction. So this is particularly good when we're looking at dominate, when we're looking at overpower. This is a way to get around it. I don't mind this card. It's a 0 for 4 at instant speed block. Because it's instant speed, I like this card. I don't like the red pitch block cards because those aren't instant speed. This one is. So this is a fine arsenal piece, and if things are getting a little hectic using it, then I don't mind the red, I don't mind the yellow as far as for draft. Blue might be a little situational, but even then it might not even be that bad. I'm not going to draft these heavy except for maybe the red as far as like where I would draft them, but I would say if they come to me around the mid range for like yellow, I would be okay with it. And if it came to me late game or late range for the draft for blue, I'm okay with that too. And then we already see this card gets played and constructed, particularly with Katsu, and the ninjas really are the ones that play this, but even like Tree Far Dash. So I'm okay with this card. This card's just solid and constructed. We're just going to continue seeing it where it gets played. Adrenaline Rush. Adrenaline Rush is potentially a 2 for 7 if you have less life. This is another reprint from Monarch. That's good value. Otherwise, it's a 2 for 4, not good value. So, kind of take where this card goes. I think there's a lot of cards that are better. This is generic, so because it's generic, I do put some value into that you can play this in any hero, and I think that is important. But there's a lot of like shared class cards in this that I would take over Adrenaline Rush. And we do not see this get played in constructed, and we will not see this get played in constructed. Performance bonus. Yeah, just a 0 for 3 for go again if you play it from the arsenal. You have to play it from arsenal, so I'm hesitant on that. It's kind of like trade-in, which that's another reprint that we're going to talk about here. You know, on hit a gold token, but it's an easily blockable card. So honestly, I'm not huge on this card at all. This isn't a card that I am going to be drafting very highly. Cool art. Looks like there's a story to tell in that art, but that's about it. And then I don't see this game played and constructed. But it's one of the ways that you can create a gold token, and sometimes that is important. You know, not everyone. The Warriors can create gold tokens pretty easily, but the other ones not so much. Maybe if you're Victor, you put a little bit more emphasis on that card. Alright, another Monarch reprint, Rally the Rear Guard, being able to block for additional 3. Yeah, it doesn't work with Rhinar, just because it wouldn't be, it just doesn't work as far as trying to intimidate them on their turn by blocking with this card. So really it's just a 2 for 6 that can sometimes block for 5 if you so chose. It was okay in Monarch. It's gonna be okay now. It's not a bad card to draft. It is a good 6, but that's about it. It's just okay. It's kind of like Adrenaline Rush. It really is just okay. It's generic, but yeah. And then no one plays this in constructed, and so that's going to continue to be the case. Trade-in, we actually have seen this get played and constructed a few times with like some weird Rhinar decks. I doubt that that's going to be the case. That got pushed away real quick. We haven't seen trade-in since, and I don't think we're going to see trade-in again. Prove me wrong. As far as in limited, here again, you have to have it from the arsenal to get go again. However, this one's a little bit better because this one works with Rhinar, because you can get some intimidation. So the other one, performance bonus, worked pretty well with like Victor hopefully getting a gold, but that was an on hit and it was a very easy blockable. Where trade-in doesn't have to be an on hit, just on attack. Get the Rhinar trigger, get the go again. It costs 0, and then you can do another attack, maybe another Rhinar trigger, and just really strip apart your opponent's hand. All right, lunging press, another reprint. Interesting that we're only getting this in blue, that we're not getting this in yellow and red. I mean, you know, given an attack action +3 for 0 in generic is pretty busted if it was red, but so I'll take the blue. It is an attack action that blocks for 2, or attack reaction that blocks for 2, I should say. That's just generic, and I think it's just okay. Like the fact that it is blue, so it's fine to be pitching. I think it's okay. I think it's good. I mean, there's a lot of cards out there, especially with the Guardians, that you just need additional like power for like an on-hit effect to happen, and lunging press can just be like a gotcha, which is pretty detrimental. So I think attack reaction, defense reactions, similar to WTR, are going to be pretty huge in this set. And we don't really have official defense reactions. We have a lot of stuff that blocks, kind of like reinforced lines. So kind of keep that in mind. Money where your mouth is. This is just a generic way to give wager. I do think if you're going to be playing Betsy in Constructed, this is a card you're going to be running 3 of. At the very least for red. I don't know if you play any other ones, but for sure on red. And then, yeah, in limited, I like this card just as well. I think this card is very good if you are playing Betsy, so that you can get the overpower, so that you can finish off the game. Or if you're playing Warriors, because they have a ton of attack reactions, and you can make sure that you are wagering when you have an attack reaction, so that you are ready to like make sure you win that wager. So I like it for those 3 heroes for limited. But this is just a generic action. It does only block for 2, so I'm not holding this very high as far as like where I'd want it drafted. But the Warriors and Betsy, I'll hold it higher for, particularly with Betsy, because there's not a ton of wager cards out there, so the more wagering you get, the better. Starting stake. You know, a lot of people thought this might be like a new merchant hero, but no, just a card, and that's okay. It's just gives you a gold, and that's it. The thing is, it's an action, so once you do it, that's your turn, and because of that, I'm not into it just in general. So I think, yeah, I'm just avoiding this card in limited. And then, you know, I know Victor can draw a card after you get this gold, but yeah, I guess you arsenal him. Anyways, yeah, not huge on that card in limited or in constructed. Test of Strength. This card I think is very good. This is a block that I'm okay with, just because winning the clash gives you a gold token, and you know, I think a gold token isn't the worst if your opponent wins, to be honest. And the fact that this is just kind of a 0/4 block, so it helps with those overpower, I think that's pretty good too. So I'm actually, this is like the only block card I'm actually really okay with. In constructed, I see this card going to be used quite a bit. I do think that, especially if you're running like Guardian or Brute, or you know, something that you're going to consistently win these clashes, I think you're going to be running this card for sure. So I like this card in constructed. I think it's going to help out the Guardians, and then I would actually draft this card pretty good. You know, maybe not the first 5 picks, but you know, pick like 6 through 10. If I see this card, I'm actually pretty okay picking it. So yeah, maybe pick 5. Okay, and there it is. We just have the tokens, and that's it. So Crack Bobble, you know, let's try to make sure we make a deck that we don't need those. That's heavy hitters for us. We're going to come out with the pre-release guide. We're going to come out with a tier list video. We're going to come out with how to draft for this set for each hero, and even the UPF draft. We got a lot coming out, so stick with us. But until then, keep on fabbing. Catch you on the next one.